What up, all you tilted tongue tanglers? It's Melder here, bringing you another Arknights class rundown. Okay, so today we're going to do the second part of the sniper rundown video. I know the first part was like well over a month ago, but these things take a long time and I've been really busy. So as usual, the first thing we're going to talk about is snipers as a whole. Basically just going to go over what I said before, and then we're going to go over the subclasses, use the second set of subclasses, and lastly, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of every single operator within those subclasses. Snipers are going to be your primary source of physical ranged DPS. Some snipers do mixed DPS and arts as well, but it's going to be primarily physical. Snipers fill a variety of different roles, including clearing drones and killing air units, clearing mobs with AoE damage, doing massive physical damage to bosses, and also bringing some utility like crowd control and slowing. The subclasses we're going to talk about today are going to be wide range snipers, close range snipers, boomstick snipers, artillery snipers, and the newly added aftershock sniper. Wide range snipers, in my opinion, are the traditional sniper character. These characters have a very large range, hence the name wide range, and they tend to sport extremely high base damage stats. Close range snipers have a much smaller range, but have extremely high damage potential with their crit talents. Boomstick snipers have the smallest range of all, but are able to hit every single enemy within their range. Artillery snipers are your heavyweight snipers. They will be taking down the tanks by targeting the heaviest weight enemies. The last subclass is unique. It is called the Aftershock Sniper class, and this class does extremely large AoE damage twice in the same area when they attack. The first character we're going to talk about today is the 5-star wide-range sniper, Firewatch. Now, Firewatch, she is really great at taking down ranged enemies because of her talent. She does bonus damage to enemies with ranged weapons, and those enemies tend to have the lowest defense or lower defense, which fits perfectly with their trait, so she's going to be able to pick off those squishy ranged DPS characters that the enemy has or sends your way. Now, she has two skills. The first one is a stealth mechanic, so she basically goes invisible for 35 seconds and she gets bonus attack. Now, her second skill is more of a burst damage skill. This skill drops 2 bombs randomly within her range. Now, if she's E1, her range is this large. That's the range of all wide range snipers. And they do massive physical damage. Now, the position of the bombs depends. It's usually just random, but it will always prioritize enemies first and then go into random locations. And I'm not going to bring up masteries too much, but I do want to mention that this character does get a lot of value from their first mastery. So she gets 1 additional bomb when she's M1'd on S2. So that is something that you definitely want to do if you do plan on building her and using her skill too. Now, some cons to Firewatch. First of all, she does need a mastery to get that 3rd bomb, which is already a little annoying. Second of all, the bombs drop randomly. So if there's only one enemy or the enemies are only occupying 1 tile, one of those nukes might just go to no man's land and not hit anybody. So it can really waste a lot of your damage potential depending on the stage or the enemies or the wave that's coming at you. Now, another con for her is that the S2 has a very large SP cost. 50 is definitely nothing to scoff at, considering this is an instant skill. So there's going to be a lot of cooldown time in between your skill 2s. And also, the initial SP on S1, although the SP cost is 26, initial SP being 0 is definitely something that is a bit unfortunate for her skill 1 if you're going to use it. The next character is going to be Andreana. She's another 5-star wide-range sniper, and she is an Abyssal Hunter. So her talent is an Abyssal Hunter faction buff. So if any Abyssal Hunter characters are in the same team as her, they gain attack speed, which is quite nice. Now, she has 2 skills. Her first skill is the very basic attack steroid that most characters get for their S1, and her skill 2, she gets a massive buff to her attack stat. She also stops prioritizing enemies that are less than 50% HP or less than half, and she also does a movement speed debuff on enemies that she does attack for 4 seconds at SR7. Now, some cons to Andreana. First of all, she is an Abyssal Hunter, so her buff only affects other Abyssal Hunters. This buff would actually be quite nice if it affected everybody, but it only affects people in the same faction. Now, granted, the Abyssal Hunter characters are pretty strong, or most of them are quite good, but it means you're kind of limited in who she buffs and the characters you can choose to really take advantage of her talent. Now, the second con to her is the attack priority on skill 2. So if she gets a character to 1 HP with her skill 2, she's not going to be able to finish them off. You're going to need another character to help her out and do the final blow while her skill's up. So this can be a little bit tricky. You might need multiple characters, but she is going to chunk them for a ton, so this isn't really that much of a con. The last of the wide-range snipers is the 4-star character Ambriel. Ambriel's skills all play around with her range, so her talent, basically, when she's shooting someone outside of her basic attack range or default attack range, she has a 25% chance to stun them for 2 seconds. Now, her skill 1 increases her attack range by 1 column right here. Her basic range is the same as other wide-range snipers, and she also can slow the targets she hits for 0.8 seconds. Now, her skill 2 is definitely more of her bread and butter. Her skill range increases indefinitely, so she just hits everyone on the battlefield, and her range is essentially infinite. When she's shooting characters or enemies outside of her basic attack range, she does gain the chance to stun them, but her attack speed is also slowed, or her animation is longer, however you want to call it. She does gain a slight attack bonus as well, and even if she's shooting someone within her attack range, she does have a slightly decreased attack speed as well. So another con to this character, she has RNG on her talent. It goes up to 28% at E2 max pot, but it's still less than 30% to get the stun off. Next up are the close range snipers, the first being the 6-star Schwartz. Now, Schwartz has 2 talents because she is a 6-star, and this character has a lot going for her, so I'm going to try to get through it pretty quickly. So she has a crit talent, and this crit talent increases in value as you upgrade her. Eventually, she'll have a 20% chance to crit for 160% damage, and she can do a defense debuff by 20% on the target for 5 seconds. Her second talent is when her and another sniper operator are deployed, all snipers gain a small attack buff. She has 3 skills. All of them affect her talent activation chance. The skill 1 going to 70%, skill 2 going to 45%, and then skill 3 going to 100%. The rest of these skills, the skill 1, she does bonus damage, so her crit is even stronger by 190% or additional 190%. Next up, her skill 2. Her skill 2 doubles her attack stat and then increases her talent. And then skill 3, it slows her attack speed slightly and it changes her range to a long line in front of her, but increases her attack stat by 140% and guarantees that massive crit damage for her talent. Now, some cons to Schwartz. Her range on S3 can be pretty tricky to play around. Also, you're definitely going to want to M1 her S3 or put a mastery into her S3 because it increases her range by 1 tile, which really actually helps a ton and really matters in my opinion. And then in addition to that, her S1 also is on hit offensive recovery, so she's going to have to attack in order to get this skill off. And then the last thing is her talent is RNG dependent. It is a crit talent, and she can increase her talent activation chance, but base it is 20%, and it doesn't increase at all no matter what you do to upgrade her. The 5-star close range sniper is going to be Provence. Provence also has a crit talent, and she has a 20% chance to do 180% damage at E2. And if they're directly in front of her, she has a 50% chance to proc that crit. Now, the range of close range snipers is right here. With no elite, it is this really small range in front. And then once you elite 1 or elite 2 the character, it goes to a 3x3 square. So she has 2 skills. The first skill is a passive, and it's basically, it functions very similar to an execute. So every 20% HP that the enemy is missing, she will do 16% bonus damage to them. So if they're missing 40% HP, she will be doing 32, and so on. That way I don't have to do math and expose myself. But her skill 2 is called Slaughter Sense. It does additional attack, or it increases her attack. It buffs her attack by 160%, but she does not attack enemies with more than 80% HP. So she is meant to do the finishing blows to enemies. So she's kind of the opposite of Andreana. So Andreana only attacks healthy. She only attacks weakened enemies. And some cons to Provence. First of all, RNG crit talent, just like the rest of the close range snipers. The target priority can be a little bit tricky to deal with, so she has to be kind of later on in the stage or further back to do execute damage. And then the initial SP on this skill is obviously 0. 30 SP cost isn't too bad, but initial SP at 0 is always a bad thing. The last close range sniper is the 4-star Acicddrop. Acicddrop's talent is every time she attacks, she does damage equal to at least 20% of her attack stat, and then 30% if they are shooting 2 hot tiles ahead of themselves. She has 2 skills, the first being an attack speed buff, and the second one, she gets a small attack buff and also hits twice. So she's going to be doing double hits or double damage essentially for every attack. Her SP cost is extremely high on this skill. 58 is definitely nothing to scoff at. This is really high, especially for sniper characters. And then the S1 only does attack speed. Granted, it does synergize quite well with her talent. Next up are the boomstick or shotgun snipers, the first being the 5-star Executor. Executor's trait and all boomstick snipers' traits is they attack every enemy within their range. They do 150% damage to the enemies in the row directly ahead of them. So if you've never seen a boomstick sniper before, this is their range at E0. It's this cross, and then once you E1 them, they get these 2 rows in front. This row being the bonus damage row. Now, Executor, his talent is he ignores defense. Simple as that. At E2, he's ignoring 160 defense. He has 2 skills. The first skill, the trait applies to all enemies within attack range, which is quite nice. So everyone that he attacks is going to take that bonus damage, and he gets a slight attack steroid as well. His skill 2, he takes out 2 shotguns. He's a dual-wielding shotgun shooter, and his attack speed is slightly increased as well. So he's doing 2 hits with his 2 shotguns, and he has a slight attack speed increase. Now, some cons with Executor. Right here, you can obviously see the SP cost is enormous. 74 SP cost for a 17-second skill is pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. And the SP cost on the S1 is also pretty high, but the duration is much better for sure. And then, like I said before, that S2 duration is very short for the amount of damage that he's going to be doing. Next up is Aosta, and Aosta is another 5-star boomstick sniper. And his talent basically revolves around a bleed effect. So any enemies that he attacks that are unblocked, they get bleed for 3 seconds, and it does a percentage of arts damage every second. So once you hit E2, he's doing 18% arts damage per second for 3 seconds if they are unblocked. Now he has 2 skills. The first one is a basic attack steroid, and his skill 2 increases his talent damage by double. So instead of 18%, it'll be 36. When skill is active, he'll also gain 50% attack. So he gets a small attack steroid as well. And his attacks bind the target for 1.2 seconds. But he does lose out on a pretty hefty amount of attack speed during skill 2. In addition to that, other cons is the limitations to his talent. This talent would actually be really good if it affected all enemies instead of just unblocked enemies. So you have to place him in kind of further ahead areas where they can walk for 3 seconds without getting blocked. So you get the full effect of the art's bleed. And lastly, the S2 SP cost is quite high, 54 again, and then initial for 19. The skill lasts for 22 seconds, which is a pretty decent amount of time, but anything above 40, even 50 SP cost is always going to be very high. So there's a lot of give and take there. The last of the boomstick snipers is the 4-star Pinecone. Now, I've talked about her before in a previous video, so I'm going to try to make this quick. So her talent, she gains SP, additional SP regen every second for 60 seconds right after she is deployed. She has 2 skills. The first skill is an additional attack on a charge basis, and it does 180% damage and ignores 210 defense at skill rank 7. So you can spam this skill 3 times, or you can hold it, and it really takes advantage of the SP talent and not using too much or having the SP go to waste. The skill 2 is her range gets reduced to the trait, the bonus damage trait tiles, the 3 in front of her, and every time she uses the skill, increases the damage by an additional 20% up to 60. So 3 skill activations, and you'll go up to 100% attack or bonus attack on her. Cons to Pinecone. Number 1, the initial SP for S2 is 0. It does kind of, and for S1 as well, but this is really mitigated by her SP regen talent, so it's not too big of a con. Also, you're not really going to have that many situations where you get the max cap of 60% onto her skill 2, because it's a 20-second skill with a 30 SP cost and 0 initial SP. So you're probably going to get it 2 to maybe 3 times per stage, depending on what stage it is. But this one definitely is good for longer stages. And then lastly, the S2 range as well. She decreases her range. It does synergize decently with her trait, but she can only attack 3 tiles out of the entire map. So the range limiting is definitely a con. Next up is the one and only heavyweight or artillery sniper. This is Rosa. We will be getting another artillery sniper somewhere down the line by the end of 2021, I'm assuming. But as of right now, it is just Rosa. She's a 6-star, so she has 2 talents. The first being a ignore defense on heavy enemies. So artillery snipers, they target the heaviest weight enemies, and if that enemy has a weight value of 3 or more, she's going to be ignoring 60% defense at E2. The second talent she has is a faction buff or faction bonus to Ursa student council members. Now, there are a fair amount of student council members, and they will be getting an 8% attack buff as well. Now, for those of you guys who don't know the Ursa Student Council, it consists of Rosa, Zima, Absinthe, Istina, and Gumi. Now, there are some other Ursus characters like Feeder and Bee Hunter, but they aren't part of the Student Council, so I don't believe they will be getting that bonus. Rosa has 3 skills, the first being a basic attack steroid of 60%. The second being the same exact thing, but she hits 2 targets. And then the third skill is her attack goes up slightly. She fires harpoons at 3 enemies with the highest weight, and she binds them in place for a certain amount of time. In this case, it is 7 seconds. So it's a 3 enemy bind for 7 seconds while also doing damage to them every second. Now, once you get to M2, she can now bind 4 enemies. So the mastery here, I'm not like too into masteries or talking about them with these videos, but just showing you the impact of masteries on some of these characters' skills. Now, some cons with Rosa. Well, the first thing I need to talk about is her range. This is her range at E0, and then this is her basic range, or her E1, E2 range. And you can see right here, there's a tire line right in front of her that she just cannot shoot at. So it's going to be really tricky for a lot of people to get used to her. But once you do, she's extremely rewarding and fun. But regardless of that, some other cons for her is her skill 2 SP cost is absurdly high. It is an 80 cost skill. Granted, she does get 45 initial SP, but 80 cost is absolutely absurd for sure. The last of the characters we're going to talk about today is Rosmontis. She is a unique 6-star limited character. She is an aftershock sniper. She does have some aspects of other subclasses, but she is definitely unique. She does splash damage twice to grounded enemies that she is attacking. Rosmontis cannot attack drones. She only can attack ground enemies. She has 2 talents being a 6-star character. The first is a flat value defense ignore. At E2, it is going to be 160 defense she's ignoring. And her second talent is she buffs 1 caster operator at random when she is deployed and when that caster is deployed. So if you only have Amiya out, she is going to buff Amiya's attack by 8% and also buff her own attack as well. She has 3 skills. Her skill 2 and 3 are quite complicated, but her skill 1 is pretty simple. So her skill 1 is basically just an auto attack modifier or auto attack enhancer. Her next attack deals additional hits of arts damage equal to 120% of her attack. So she's going to be doing bonus arts damage. She is a mixed damage character because her base splash does physical damage, and then with her skill 1, there is some arts damage involved. Her skill 2, it decreases her attack speed, increases her attack by 30%, and also increases the radius of the splash that her auto attacks do. This attack will cause 2 additional aftershocks, so she's going to be aftershocking a ton after each attack, and then the targets have a 20% chance to be stunned for about 1 second. Her skill 3, when she activates her skill, she shoots 2 of these big weapon sword pillar things down into the ground, and they can block enemies. Okay, they can block enemies. She only targets blocked enemies, and her attack speed increases. She can hit 2 targets simultaneously, and she also gets 40% attack bonus. She gets a chance to stun. So after deployment, stun nearby enemies for 2.5 seconds. So you basically place her down, you activate her skill 3, she shoots down these 2 pillars, they stun the enemy for 2.5 seconds, they reduce their defense, and she starts whacking away at them very quickly, hitting 2 targets at once. So that's a lot to going on in this skill 3. But she does have some cons as well, like all characters do. The first skill is on-hit recovery, offensive recovery. It's only 3 attacks, though, so it's not too bad. The S3 SP cost is enormous, 74 SP with 35 initial and then a 27 duration. So this is definitely a pretty hefty SP cost for the skill 3. And the last thing I already mentioned before, but she cannot hit drones. So you need like an anti-air sniper paired with her, or maybe even a caster at that point. She just needs something to help cover the drones that she cannot hit. That is every sniper in the game talked about. Hopefully this video was helpful to you all. I know it was very overdue. But if you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them in the comment section down below on Discord, or catch me live on Twitch and chat with me there. I would love to have you. Hopefully y'all have a great rest of your day and your week, and peace out.